Echo 9 Hotel, take 4. Mark.
Go. And action.
Initially, we planned on making an entirely different film, a kind of surreal comedy.
That didn't end up working out. The actor fell through last minute, and then we had about a week of pre-production to come up with something else before we were planned to shoot. We had the crew ready, we had all this equipment, we had everything planned out, so we needed to make something. So we decided to make Red Water.
At the time, I was going through my first series breakup, and Rita and I both felt that we could incorporate this into the film.
Because it goes with horror, you know, it's terrifying to let go of someone and to not have them in your life anymore when you are used to them.
We didn't want to just make something scary, we wanted to add a dramatic aspect to the film. Something that would hopefully cause the audience to feel more emotions than just fear. The casting process of the film was interesting. Due to the limited amount of time we had in pre-production, we literally had to cast the film while we wrote the screenplay.
And I remember we had a lot of trouble casting it. Originally we were trying to cast even a male as the lead role. We were struggling to get an actor to commit, and then finally Luke just looked at me and said, you know what, how about you just be in it?
Looking back on it now, it was only fitting that Rita starred in the film. She starred in our very first film, Nameless, and of course she had to star in this one. She also gave an amazing performance, and it just all really worked out in the end.
For the antagonist, we were trying to decide who can play that serial killer, but he also has a part of him that you can trust, like when he first enters the house. So you really have to find someone who has that dynamic personality and who can shift and have that juxtaposition within their persona.
We were actually in summer class that David was in as well.
So then we were sitting in class one day and David raised his hand to answer a question that the teacher asked. And then while he's talking, I looked at Luke and I was like, that's our guy.
Plus, he was a professional actor, so we thought he could bring a lot to the project. This film was very, very challenging to make, physically and mentally. It was grueling. When you watch a film, it always looks so simple, and I think that's like the best type of filmmakers. They always make it feel so effortless. But you forget just how hard filmmaking actually is.
Time was a major constraint for us. We had 4 consecutive night shoots. It definitely comes with that added level of stress where the first few hours you are probably pretty fine, but when it comes to 1, 2, 3, 4 a.m., you still have several hours to go in front of you and you still need to work and be functional and effective. I think a lot of the crew struggled with that at first.
The opening shot of the film was an interesting challenge.
We had to figure out a way to create essentially like a black void.
I wanted it to feel like it was Jane's most terrifying nightmare.
Being as we were limited budget-wise and equipment-wise, we couldn't go to a facility where it was kind of a pre-set-up rig.
And instead we had to shoot the scene in the garage of the house that we were filming in.
We took all of the black fabric we had and we pasted it against the back wall.
And then Austin had to light it in a certain way so that you weren't able to tell that, you know, there was just literally fabric hanging up behind him. I was very impressed with the way Austin made it look with such limitations. I also wanted drops of water falling from the ceiling, and in order to achieve this effect, we had grips stand on ladders holding water bottles with small cuts in the caps of the water, and they, you know, held it upside down, and this created this kind of water droplet effect.
I know what I said, but I just don't think it's gonna work. I'm just not even close in the relationship. I'm in it at the time. I know what I said before. I'm just too busy right now to understand. I just don't think I can do this. We're just not in a good place to be.
It was a crazy setup. It's just so funny looking back on it now.
When the antagonist first shows up at the door, Luke wanted it a little bit more on the eerie side with how he acted, almost robotic in a sense. That shot was very tricky.
And I'd be like, oh, I was too leading, he's a bad guy. The way you have to play a character like this is very likable. And it's the things you're doing that are the bad things. Otherwise, it's just too over the top villainy stuff, and it's not enough actual character depth.
Directorially, I felt it was important to visually see the difference between the scenes when the serial killer first arrives and Levi.
Definitely wanted to make them feel different, even though the scenes are very similar. And that's one of the major tricks with cinematography, trying to influence the viewer's emotions while watching a scene without overtly showing it or saying it.
For the shot of David, Austin and I really heightened the contrast.
Not only is it meant to like increase the foreboding nature of it, but it also kind of shows this person is a little bit two-faced and doesn't necessarily represent who he says he is. Even if he says that he's this plumber represented by the light side, there actually this whole other dark side to him.
As opposed to Levi.
The porch light is more soft. The quality of the light just allows much more of an inviting nature.
Austin and I also decided to shoot both scenes with different focal lengths. David's scene was shot on a wider lens in order to create more, separation between the characters, making them feel hopefully more disjointed from one another, as opposed to Levi's scene, which was shot with a telephoto lens, which hopefully compresses them together since they both are on the morally good side. Hopefully, these visual differences will make the viewer subconsciously feel like there's something wrong when David's character arrives first in the film. We literally had to install a shower in the middle of our kitchen. It was insane. We ran a hose across the top of the kitchen cabinets, and at the end of the hose, we attached a shower head.
I was just standing in a little kiddie pool type thing, and the guy over me with a shower head on a broomstick, and it's just following my every move with the water, and so none of it was missing. Every drop was landing.
We had the visual motif of water always coming down on him to represent the surreal aspect of the film and to represent sort of her nightmare and how this was, just what she was seeing. He wasn't actually there in her house, but it was still that breakup and trauma that's haunting her.
To see the water is a whole thing to begin with too, because you have to light it in a certain way. A lot of times backlighting the water is good go-to. That way, kind of silhouettes the droplets as they come down. Once they embrace, we had a block light that was backlighting the couple as they start to kiss. We just removed the flag just to give a visual jump. A lot of the movies are very methodical, and so when we decided to do this fast dolly push-in, we just wanted to give it a little bit of an extra kick.
And it was unusually cold that night for a Southern California night. It was freezing for some reason.
After each take, we had a heater on set, and Grit would plug it in, and Angie would go over with the towel, and I would go over with the towel, and we would just warm up by the heater.
Super, super fun. Really indie filmmaking that's finest, super guerrilla.
For the character of Jacob, Rita and I talked a lot about how this character would act, what his presence would be like. And I thought what would be cool is if the character never blinked throughout the entire film. Because blinking is such a human thing to do if he doesn't blink, especially if there's water dumping on his head. There's just something disturbing about that.
Another interesting element with Jacob is the duality of the inhuman persona plus the attractive, alluring, captivating persona.
And so finding the balance between those two things of creepy and off color, but also there's something that's drawing you in a little bit was interesting to play with.
I think by far the most complicated shot in the film was the mirror shot.
It was crucial for this part to be in one unbroken take in order to believe the illusion that Jane saw herself as Jacob's new girlfriend. Austin and I both agreed that the effect had to be done practically in camera.
It's one of those shots that takes several attempts to do and a lot of coordinated effort on a lot of different fronts.
Ellie was the real MVP. In the beginning, she had to hide behind Andrew and run her hands up Andrew's back.
So right when I pushed him, Austin would give me a cue and quickly go to here, and on that cue I had to duck, and then they would give me another cue when I had to come up and Ellie would go down. The physicality was so intricate and detailed that I had to nail the exact, hop, step, shift, weight, go down, go up.
Definitely the most intricate makeout scene I've ever shot.
For Red Water, we ended up actually hiring a professional stunt coordinator due to the intense stunts throughout the film.
It really does affect the shot as well, having someone who really knows what to look for and then who can help you achieve the proper goal.
I really want to praise David and Rita. It was very, very physically demanding. The only reason the fights looked even decent was because of their commitment. As a director, this was a complete blessing.
David, acting with him was incredible. One of the first days he got to set, he suggested that we would do a actor bonding exercise where we could get more comfortable with each other.
We'd say nice things to each other, remind her that I'm me, Dave, not creepy plumber killer boy. That way she could have the most trust with me, so I knew that I could go as far as I needed to.
He was so good at getting into character that I was genuinely freaked out. He would do things like right before the take, he would grab my leg and be like, Jane, Jane, just to kind of freak me out and get me in that headspace, and it helped so much.
There are always shots that you don't expect to be as difficult as they are to pull off. This was especially the case for the knife shot.
It was a little challenging because the knife had to land in the most perfect spot where the camera was, right in front of the camera. Adam was super helpful at that. He actually taught me a way to fall without hurting myself. As I was doing those techniques that he taught me, I also had to balance where to drop the knife. We probably had to redo it about 12 or 13 times until we got the perfect one.
It's funny when the shot only lasts a few seconds. I mean, if you blink, you'll miss it. But it was very difficult to achieve. An interesting challenge on set was making the moment where Jane hits the killer with the record, making that look believable. We ended up using one of the oldest tricks in cinema, a cut.
I would take the record and I would just swing it in front of his face, obviously not hitting him.
And then on the impact, we cut to the reverse angle where Jane is now only holding the broken record. And by stitching these two shots together, it looks as if she actually hit him over the head with a record.
Then we also had Adam, the stunt coordinator, throwing broken record pieces, and that was extremely helpful, I remember, because then it gives that illusion that it was shattering right, in front of the audience's face.
One of the most anxiety-ridden moments of filming was the death of the antagonist. Due to continuity, we had to save this for the end of filming.
There's so much momentum going, there's all this adrenaline, the sun's coming up, we're racing the sun, we're doing all these different things, and David has to fall flat on his back multiple times.
I remember being so tired and so exhausted that it really helped play into the whole, I'm trying to survive, I just want to give up.
In order to achieve the blood squirting effect, we had rubber hosing running up the back of David's shirt to his neck, and there we attached it with some clay-like material. On the other end of the hosing, we had a bug sprayer with gallons of blood in it. On action, our parents pumped the bug sprayer, and the blood slowly ran up the tube and came, squirting out of David's neck.
And that we had to get right. We had to get the fall right. Everything had to line up perfectly to end the film in the way that we did.
We literally have the most supportive parents in the world. Not only did they allow us to install a shower in the middle of their kitchen, but they also allowed us to flood it with water.
Austin, how do you feel?
I feel
What?
wet and bloody.
And bloody, I wonder why. A lot of Jane's journey throughout the whole film is her personal triumph and tragedy with this breakup.
Maybe the serial killer actually doesn't exist. Maybe it's a metaphor for the dangers of not letting go of a loved one after a breakup. The serial killer is almost like this destructive force inside all of us, one that will not go away until we finally decide to let go. Or it could just be a serial killer. I mean, it's really up for the viewers to decide.
Our tagline is, sometimes it kills to let go, because although it is so hard and challenging to do, there's something that is freeing about it in the end, and I think that's what Jane finds in her inner strength, finally letting go of that toxic relationship. And I think it's sort of a beautiful film in that sense, because you can see by the end she realizes that she does need to let him go and that she's worth more.
think my initial gut instinct was how to score this without doing the tropes. Let's try to do something refreshing with the music because I felt like this idea was being executed in a fresh way. I guess it was the plumber. I think if there wasn't a plumber in the story, there wouldn't have been pipes. I wouldn't have gone there in my head. I think it genuinely was just that there was a plumber, and I thought, what if I did the whole thing with pipes? So I just went to Home Depot, and this kind old man, I was like, I'm looking for things that sound good when I hit them. So he like walked around and was like, I think, this might sound pretty good if you hit it, or, this is pretty weird sounding, and things like that. And genuinely helped me, come up with ideas. My approach with Redwater was to create just a wall of uneasiness. Then when shit really hit the fan, I feel like I could just let loose. Almost just this big giant noise machine of metal. It was freeing not having to worry about the conventional understandings of music and actually test my own ability of what constitutes music when I listen to this, what makes me think this is music. It was really fascinating for me with Redwater to see, is this as effective as full orchestra doing a horror film? And I think it is, and I think that's what's so exciting, what was so exciting about it. I think that the most important takeaway of my score for Redwater is that I scored an entire short with just pipes and got away with it.
I always joke with Rita that Redwater is like the final chapter in the saga of films SIP Productions made in high school. We produced 4 films in total.
I'm so deeply humbled by the kindness that all of our crew members have shown us the past few years.
Oh, the days of growing up, where drawing in the lines was tough, and mom's approval was enough.
I think the crazy part is at least 90% of those who helped didn't even want to go into film. Still hard for me to grasp why so many people were so willing to help Rita and I. We were just, 2 high schoolers who had no idea what we were doing.
Well, I wanna know when I was stripped of my innocence, and trading cards turned into trading hearts. And I wanna know when joy became just a past tense.
In a way, even though things change and time moves on, you can still have that bond with them, those shared memories of the late nights, falling asleep on the couch, filming in the backyard till 5 in the morning, up in the neighbor's balcony, all of these crazy sort of experiences. I think that it shape you not only as a filmmaker, but as a person. And I don't think I would be who I am today if I didn't have these people in the past.
No words can express how grateful we are.
When authentic meant far away.